Yeah.
Steve, let's get away from massive DDoS attacks because I want to go back to a good old-fashioned cluster breach.
Old school security breach.
Old school security breach. This is just someone let everything out. And yeah, we've heard about a lot of breaches over the past couple of years, but this one is of note, not just because of size, but also because of the circumstances behind the disclosure of this breach. Of course, this is Yahoo.
Yes. So and I'm really not. I'm not interested in the politics. The problem with that is that there's so much subject to interpretation. Just so people know what that is, the argument is that that executives at Yahoo, Marissa and company, were aware of this breach for as much as 2 years and didn't talk about it publicly. So, of course, that's really misbehavior. When we talk about problems that arise, and I don't mean to use LastPass as anything but a good example, because mistakes can happen. There was a strange problem with, I think it was just Firefox browsers, with the way their extension interacted with something. They had it fixed before it was Tavis Ormandy who found the problem, and he was creating a timeline for like managing this problem, and it was fixed before he had posted the timeline. So that's what you want. We all understand that everyone can have a problem. The question is how quickly and responsibly do you deal with it? That may be a softer standard than some people would like. People would like no problems ever, but we can't do that. So the best we can do is immediately remediate by, for example, informing those who might be affected. In this case, as many as 500 million Yahoo accounts were breached sometime in the past, and they didn't tell anybody. Now, the part that I found interesting, there was a little bit of the technical details, because the good news was that Yahoo has been using a very strong password-based key derivation function known as bcrypt, which is very difficult to accelerate and speed up by design. It was designed for this purpose, so that it would be a memory hard problem that was resistant and resilient against brute force attacks. The bad news is that if you parse Yahoo's announcement, it suggests that most, but on the other hand, these are people who didn't tell us for 2 years, so I'm not sure that their adjectives should be believed completely, but not all of their passwords were hashed with bcrypt. We don't know how many passwords were hashed with not bcrypt, and we don't know what not bcrypt they were using. That is, was it MD5? What did they obsolete and strengthen? The good news is they did strengthen something. The bad news is we don't know. Now, we've seen and we've covered in the past instances where a company exactly with Yahoo's profile implemented stronger password-based key derivation, but for the sake of backward compatibility, left the old hashes there too. Well, okay, so as users signed in, they would migrate the old hash. They would verify with the old hash, and then they would rehash with the new, stronger algorithm. What they should do is then delete the old hash. We know that there have been cases where that was not done, but that's what you have to do in order to evolve from an old hashing scheme to a new one. That is, there needs to be a period of overlap, and because the whole nature of hashing is that you cannot, like on the server side, Yahoo can't simply change the the MD5, if that's what it was, to a bcrypt. They have to wait for that user to log back in to their Yahoo account. And that's the other thing too. I mean, we don't even know how many of these were not just throwaway, because Yahoo is the classic, oh my God, I want to post something to this blog. Must I create an account? Well, I'm not giving them my real email. So you just, get a throwaway account. Yahoo has been a great source of those. So the idea being, though, that they, in order to advance the hash, they have to wait for somebody whose account is currently weakly hashed to provide the plain text password to them. They then hash it with the old algorithm to verify that that's a proper login. Then they take the same plain text and rehash it with the new one and thereby upgrade. So again, it's frustrating that there's so much still not known. So, the takeaway for everyone is the greatest danger would be probably that you've had a Yahoo email account for a long time, like ever. Did you ever make one? And did you ever reuse your password? And unfortunately, everyone used to. Monkey123 was popular for a reason. And so if it's both old, it is probably the password, like what used to be your password. Oh, this is my password, and I use it everywhere I go. It's like, well, we've known for a long time you can't do that. But if there's any other instance where you may have reused that password, that's the vulnerability. Because from this breach, of personal information, it's probable that from what they said, a percentage of those accounts were weakly hashed. And if those were hashed with a weak algorithm, MD5, for example, and Yahoo's been around long enough, it probably was once MD5, then if you had reuse, that's probably where you're vulnerable. And so you definitely want to change the passwords on any accounts, any non-Yahoo accounts that might possibly have ever shared it.
Steve, I'm like you. My Yahoo accounts were always my throwaway accounts. They were the ones that I had just because I wanted a place for junk to go. And I have 5 of them, and none of them have been checked within the last 7 years, would be my guess. But I went back in and I changed all the passwords. When I was at DEF CON, though, there was a very nice gentleman who was explaining to me that he specialized in looking for those throwaway accounts, because he says it's got a couple of points that make it very dangerous. First, throwaway accounts typically don't have really strong passwords because it's something that someone wants to remember. So it is a reused password. Secondly, throwaway accounts, because they are discounted as to their importance, people forget what services they had attached to that account. So if I sign up for a service with a throwaway account and then I just forget about the throwaway account, that email is probably still in there. So they'll know what services they can get into by requesting a password reset, and it will go back to the throwaway account. And it was fascinating. I was talking to this guy for about 45 minutes, and he was telling me about all the different ways that he could use what most people consider digital refuse to ultimately get into that top layer of accounts, the stuff that was actually still active.
Well, and I did see one interesting piece of advice that I appreciated regarding this, and that was, don't retain old email only because you can. Following on from your example, Padre, it is important to recognize that those confirmation emails and so forth, that is a rich repository of your history, which is probably not entirely obsolete, probably not entirely useless. So the fact that these gargantuan email services allow you the luxury of never having to permanently delete something, that's a mixed blessing. It can be useful, but it can also bite you. We've talked about, I want to say Mail Home. Mail Store Home is my favorite little local archiver. And, you know, it's what I do for all of my various GRC-based accounts, and the other stuff I'm doing is it's a beautiful index database. And so I run it periodically. It sucks down my email and indexes it and archives it and makes it searchable here. So I still have all the benefit of everything being available, yet not the liability of that everything being out in the cloud. And here's a classic, perfect example of why that's not safe. So if you've got those Yahoo accounts with lots of old emails sitting in them, somebody who can get in there can learn more about you than you would like them to.
Right. That might actually be an interesting exercise for our audience to look through their throwaway accounts to find out what's been left in the deleted items folder, or what's been left in, you know, those folders that you filed away on Yahoo. See how many other accounts those can actually lead into, because I'm betting there are quite a few. And in fact, on mine, I realized that one of my very first throwaway Yahoo accounts I used to verify a Google account, because Google originally, way back when, required another email address for you to be able to establish the account. And so my Yahoo account had the information for the Google account. The Google account actually had the information for an Exchange account. And then the Exchange account led into a folder that could give you access to my password hash. Which I was looking at that going, okay, that's convoluted, and I know where those are, but still, that's way more information than I thought I was giving away.
Well, and, you know, we're not good at saying what if. You know, as we've talked about, it's instructive to say, although a little dark perhaps, to say, you know, what if I die in the next 5 minutes? Literally, like, what if I die? Can my friends and family get to the things that they may need to? That is, you know, planning ahead. Similarly, you challenge yourself by looking at your email berg and say, what if a bad guy got this? I mean, put yourself in that position. Browse through that. What if this was in the hands of someone malicious? What are the consequences? And again, just exactly as you were giving an example of, it's potentially frightening.
Yeah, and I think you're right. We don't like to think about that. Or maybe it's not even that we don't like to think about that. We can't think of that. We're not built to think of worst case scenario. Yeah, go figure. Steve, is it just the standard mitigation practices that we're talking about here? We've got people in the chat room saying, well, okay, if I change my password, if I use a strong password, is that enough? Or do I consider my accounts dead now?
I guess, okay, there's several ways to look at this. One is, how do you feel about Yahoo? There are alternatives to Yahoo. So does their behavior inspire confidence in their future custody of any of your email?
And that answer should be no.
Yeah, it really should be no.
If it took them 2 years to tell me about a massive breach that they've known about for at least that long, then no. I can't actually, there is no way to delete the accounts. You can empty them out, but they stay there, which is wonderful.
Yeah, so, okay, so to take those accounts then out of service, you empty them all out as much as you possibly can. Then you change their passwords to something insane that you deliberately don't write down, and you will never be able to get back in there again. And you know, you're not going to have a problem with sharing your password. Basically, you're saying, Yahoo, no more. I mean, the reason LastPass still has my confidence is the way they respond to any problems found. That's the flip side of Yahoo, where I'm proud to say I've never had an email account because it just always seemed a little too strange to me. I mean, I just never took them seriously. So, but I also had the advantage of my own domain and email server, so there wasn't much pressure on me to go looking for all other solutions. But still, Yeah, I think you're right, Padre. I think that no one, maybe there's some reason you must keep your Yahoo email. In that case, yes, certainly change the password. If you haven't logged in for a long time, knowing what little we know, which is distressingly little because they're just not being as forthcoming even now as they should be, logging in hopefully promotes you to a stronger hash. And at the same time, then change it to a state-of-the-art 20-character mixed character class password managed by a password manager, and you're doing everything you can. That, and maybe just sweep out all of the debris that Yahoo has been holding for you, because other people can get to it potentially.